Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi there, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. Glad to have you join us tonight. Sorry we've been missing the last 2 weeks. We had 2 shows, but of course they were pre-recorded. If you haven't watched them already, we have Caleb and Linda were on last week. Kayla and Linda, I'm sure you've seen before. And the week before that was PG Man. It'd be worth watching those shows if you haven't watched them yet. You can find them on indiebooksource.com. You can go down in the first 3 lines that you get after you click on to Meet the Author page. You'll see places to watch it, and you go down further, you can watch it on our YouTube. And if you do, subscribe to us, because it's pathetic how few followers we have.
We need subscribers.
We do. But Caleb and Linda have some exciting news. They are doing an anthology of something. It's something I've never heard of before, and they never have either. They may be the first to do it, so that's interesting. And PG Man is an Italian author living in Finland who writes in English. And so she's a multifaceted, multi-talented person. And if we hadn't done that pre-recorded, we could never have had her on the show because of her work and then the time difference. And hello, Ronnie. Welcome to the show. Glad to see you here.
Okay, so maybe we should get started.
Yes.
What do you think?
I
Okay.
think so.
Now that we're back, we're not on vacation anymore.
No.
Our writing getaway. That's what that was. Okay, 2 authors tonight. Second half hour is going to be author Joe BROADMEADOW, and he's got a lot of wonderful things to talk about. Mm-hmm. And our first author is James RICKARD. And why don't we, without much ado, why don't we bring him on in?
Yep. Hi,
Hi, James.
Hi, folks.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's good to have you. We often have you in the audience, and it's nice to have you on the show for a change.
Now I can put a face to the name.
Yeah, exactly. And
go.
James, you are a multi-genre author, and actually and Joe, who will be on next, is also multi-genre. So that's really
Super.
cool.
Okay.
But first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started writing?
Okay. I'm from a really small town in West Virginia called Philippi, West Virginia. First land battle of the Civil War. I lived here. I was born and raised here, moved to Pittsburgh, and I came back here a few years ago and got real serious about my writing then. I started out writing when I was about, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old, something like that, maybe 7 or 8. And never got real serious about it till I moved back, though.
Oh, look, George says I'm here more or less.
Hi, George.
I know,
Hey, George.
The big Texas welcome to you.
I know. I'm sorry, George. I'm sure you've been so busy. We noticed you've had lots of rehearsals and everything for your upcoming movie, Siren Song. So welcome.
So which book was your first one, James?
My very first one was, oh gosh, I got it right here. Grandpa Wore a 6-gun. It's an out Western story. It took me about 10 years to write. Maybe I'll start before I moved back. Anyway, it took me a long time to write it. It's not very true. The only real truth of the story is it's about a guy who was born in 1870. Now, my grandfather was born in 1870, and you think, wow, man, it's like that. That's way back there, but he didn't pass away until 1953, if you can believe that. So I always look at it this way. Can you imagine all the history that guy saw? Like, aside from the cowboy days, which I mentioned in my book, you got to think it's like he saw the advent of the airplane, a couple of world wars, the rise of communism, the beginning of nuclear energy, so even television.
Now, Caleb said, James is fortunate. There are a lot of great stories lurking in the hollows of West Virginia.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
That is quite true. And Caleb, we just mentioned that if people hadn't tuned in last week, they need to check out your interview last week because you had some exciting news for us. Marjorie says, you're live, I'm live, it's all good. Glad to be here with the three of you. I know, Marjorie. After 2 weeks of us being pre-recorded, we have missed all of you. I've got to tell you that because we like all the comments and that you make always. So let's bring up some of your more recent books.
Okay.
Left-Handed Gringo.
Yes, and another Western. I kind of like that story. I like it when I wrote it, and I still like it.
Well, it's a Martin Carter short story, right?
Yeah.
If it's Carter, it's got to be good.
There you go. That's what I'm thinking.
There you go. Yeah. See, the way I wrote that story is like I came up with a dynamite title, and then I had to write the story. And so then I thought, well, let's see, it's having, again, a Pancho Villa, kind of a revenge tale. He goes to Mexico. He's got to shoot left-handed instead of right-handed. An American in Mexico, gringo, left-handed because he's shooting left-handed. He's been wounded in the right side. So it all kind of flowed together after a while.
Here's one of my favorite ones. It's the Old West, the New West, and the Weird West, 12 Stories of the West.
That's an incredible little book. It sells pretty well, but not great. But I will say that is really a history of my writing. I've got the first Western in there that I ever wrote. Let's see. I've got a story in there also that was a bedtime story for my son when he was a little boy. He's 33 now,
Yeah. And here's a different genre, My Pet Zombie, Life in the Coal Zone.
Yeah, I'm not really a zombie buff, but the story was in my head, round and round, and I'm the kind of guy, I got to get the story out before I can move on, So I kind of had to write that one to move on.
Oh, that's interesting. I can kind of let stuff percolate for a long time. I don't need to get them out real fast.
I wish I could let stories percolate. I like the idea of doing that. The trouble is, I'll go to bed every night, trying to think of other things. And I said, and then I could have him do this, and I could have him do that, and this would happen. And it kind of wrote itself, really.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And then we have Once Upon a Time with Grandpa.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a sequel to my earlier work, Grandpa Wore a Six Gun. Same character, but it's a lot of time has passed, and so I think I'm going to keep writing about the Old West all the time. And I want the character to grow. And so it's like 1927, 28. I forget which it is. And he becomes involved looking for whether or not Butch Cassidy actually died in South America. And so he's an investigative journalist, and he goes down and tries to find out and gets involved in Butch Cassidy's nefarious activities.
Oh, cool.
Now, aren't you distantly related to either Butch Cassidy or the Sundance Kid?
Butch Cassidy, both of them.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a cousin who is really into genealogy, and she traced it back for me and found out we're related. Sort of. Very distantly, but we're related.
There you go.
It sounds really good when you write your bio.
Yeah, it does. It does, right?
Everybody I'm distantly related to is from the old country back in Ireland.
Too far back, okay.
Not too many generations have lived here so far. Treasure of the Ant People.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a fantasy science fiction story. The second story I wrote, and it picks up a story again of Charlie Hobbs. And it's happening way after the West, and so it's around 1920, something like that. Kind of vague. I don't say exactly when, but he gets tied up with his next door neighbor. His next door neighbor is Joby, and they say, "Hey, wait a minute," and Joby is like a big dreamer, and he said, I read this thing in National Geographic about Pancho Villa left a lot of gold in Texas. So, or not Texas, I'm sorry, a lot of gold in Mexico. So let's go see if we can find some treasure. And they go down and the madness ensues.
That's really cool. It's interesting that you have Charlie involved with a sci-fi type story.
The thing of it is, it didn't start out that way, but it kind of moved that way, and it kind of it all fits together. Kind of fits. I mean, you can't, I mean. I just sound like an old guy, but it's like I
Too late.
I didn't want to write a story about somebody 20 years old fighting the bad guys that always win and things like that, So let's figure. It's like, well, the guy was born in 1870. If it's in the 20s, he's got to be in his 50s. So what are we going to do? So he can't be fighting bad guys. So they encounter some things like aliens the last one that we talked about, the underground dwellers, and Joby helps them out a whole lot too.
There you go. So let's go on to our first book giveaway. We'll go ahead and get that going here.
Okay.
The first 2 people to email jamesrickardwrites@gmail.com will win an ebook of choice.
Of any of your books.
Any of your books.
Yes, any of them. So whatever floats your boat, you can order it.
Okay, that's cool. Also, let's get some of your information out there. You can find James at Facebook, james.rickard.5832. That's JAMES.RICKARD.5832.
And how they put the 5832 on there, I don't know.
It means something.
Yeah, it means something to somebody.
Somebody, yeah. And
now
here's your alias.
Twitter is at Liam and 82987044. So that's Liam, LIAM, capital AND.
The number isn't like a convict's number or anything, is it? So
No.
Liam and some convict.
See, what I was doing during that period when I signed up on Twitter, I didn't know if I really wanted to expose my true identity or not. So I was using a false identity. Liam Anderson.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Liam Anderson. That was your nom de plume.
Yes, nom de plume.
Perfect.
Or your pen name or your pseudonym, however you want to say it. Oh my goodness.
Hey, Tom Nally.
How are you? This is Tom's World. You can find him on YouTube.
Or Tom's Chair. Tom's Chair might be there. Well, he might not be.
We've been on many podcasts with Tom where all we saw was an empty chair. Right, Tom?
Well, I tell you what, I got to check that out because anybody that calls it, this is Tom's World or whatever. What was it again? You put that back up?
Sure. This is Tom's World.
Okay. Yeah, I got to check that out. Okay.
Yeah, he's got some pretty good videos.
He does.
Really good videos. Yeah.
He does some really great stuff at parks.
Oh,
look at who's here. Joe Conjol. Hi.
Hey, Joe.
And Hames. No, that's James, I'm sure.
I think he means James.
Yes. Oh boy.
Hey, we missed all of you guys.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, LMAO, Tom's chair. Well, Tom, that has happened more than once.
There you go.
It's been fun every time.
So, James, what do you got? What do you got coming up? Anything? Any plan on the drawing board there?
Fact, I'm working on.
Hold it still. You're almost there.
Return of the Ant People. I can read it.
I like that.
Okay, yeah.
Return of the Ant.
I haven't published it yet. I just got the mock-up of it here.
That's a sequel to this.
That's right. Yes.
Well, looks good.
It does.
Thank you.
Something to look forward to.
So I take it that Charles gets into trouble with them again.
Exactly right. Now,
cool.
This is even better because this time the story also, now it still involves Joby, but it also involves his wife. So you get a little bit, going to all different markets and that kind of thing, trying to appeal to different audiences.
Right. So now Tom said, I should have a live stream that goes overnight with just my chair, a new channel called This is Tom's Chair.
That'd be a journal.
Right, journal.
Oh, this guy's already cracking me up.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
he's a funny guy.
really funny.
We liked him.
Though, to tell you the truth, is YouTube is about a park that he's helping to renovate and get planted and stuff. So it's actually very serious.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
It's actually a serious
It's
thing.
a very serious YouTube channel, but very enjoyable and beautiful if you like taking walks through parks and seeing. Sorry, that was my Boston coming out. Taking walks through parks.
Parks.
The rest of you would say parks.
The Harvard Yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started a YouTube channel not too long ago, but I'm kind of bummed out because it's like they won't put a subscribe channel or a subscribe button right next there. You know, you've got it says analytics and something else, but the little red subscribe button's not there. So I stuck one on each video, and I don't know if it works or not.
Yeah, that's what ours have a little. Our logo is down in the lower right-hand corner when you go to watch something, and it says subscribe. If you click that, you subscribe.
What,
So-
to our YouTube channel?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't working very well.
No, well, it's people don't really know that. I think I didn't know that. It's all so. Oh, I guess I'll put that on there.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So-
then it's they say contact us. I guess this is our night to rag on YouTube. Then it says contact us. The trouble is, there's all this stuff on there that says YouTube doesn't get back to you when you do try to contact them. So I contact him just to be on the safe side.
There's our page, everybody. 40 subscribers. That's proof right there.
All right.
Okay. We need to pump that up. We need to boost it up a little
pathetic. That's our YouTube channel.
bit. That's very sad.
It is really sad.
But actually, our show plays on another YouTube channel,
Yeah.
the radio station's YouTube channel. And then we upload later, the next day, we upload it onto ours. So we have everything's all in one place.
Yeah.
But it's also on the radio station's YouTube channel,
Yeah.
which is what is broadcasting right now.
Yeah.
I'm not real sure like how I watch it live. All I know is I type in Meet the Author podcast and it takes me there.
There you go.
Caleb says, I'm partial to his windmill portal.
Yeah, Portal, yes.
Oh, okay.
I live only a half hour away from Aurora and have written many stories about the spacecraft crashing into Judge Proctor's windmill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know about this, James?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That wasn't that in Texas?
Yes, Aurora, Texas.
Aurora, Texas. Yes. That's amazing. And they gave the poor little fella a good Christian burial.
That's right.
That was in the
I remember
newspaper. Poor little fella. That's what they call him.
I can't he had a name, and I can never remember his name.
I can't either, but they buried
It's
him
a
with
simple
a name.
name. It's a simple name, like Zuzu
Dawn or
something.
Bill or Joe.
Yeah, Bill or Ed or whatever.
Diane says I need
Ned.
to
I
check
think
and
it was
see if
Ned.
I'm subscribed.
Ned? Yeah, it could have been Ned.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks.
Yes, I
All we gotta do is
love
ask.
that story about Aurora, Texas. When we have Bob and Jim back, we'll have to talk about that.
Well, let me elaborate on that a little bit then, the way that it ties into Windmill Portal. It's like, it's like the idea of a portal is kind of like a hallway, and that's how the UFOs get into Earth. And instead of traveling all the distance, they just come through a portal. But right after right after Charlie Hobbs gets married, he's on his honeymoon, and they see a flying saucer, except they're in Ohio. But there's a link between the UFO in Ohio and the one that crashed in Aurora, Texas. And so naturally, he goes down to Aurora and checks things out.
Okay.
We've never been to Aurora, but have you, Caleb? I'm just wondering, because that would probably be a cool thing to do, wouldn't it, to go visit there? I know there isn't much left to see, but I still would like to see where it happened.
So, James, have you seen any UFOs?
As a matter, Rob, we can talk to what's out on this. Yes, I have. Yes. And also, it's like I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I also know enough about UFOs to know that just because you see a bright light in the sky or a weird cloud pattern, it's not a UFO.
That's true.
Right.
Well, Rob's a retired air traffic controller, so he can tell you for sure that That is very true.
That is very true, yeah.
A lot of misidentification.
Well, and especially now, I mean, they have all the drones that
Right.
they're all computerized to do big shows. I mean, there's like hundreds of them that do these fabulous shows all over the place. So anybody can do that if you have the money and the technology, you know.
Well, I don't get it. I don't get excited at all anymore about anyone who says that they've seen a UFO at night. It's like if you see something in the daytime, that gets my attention. But at night, not so much.
Okay.
Caleb said he's been there many times. The windmill is gone. I knew that. And the cemetery is there. I knew that. And someone has stolen the little guy's headstone. I knew that too. And I know that they went in there with LiDAR to check for his plot. And they did find something, but they couldn't get permission.
Let's cancel the trip. We're not going.
No, I want to go.
Wasn't there a feature a few months ago on Ancient Aliens about that, or some program? I forget.
It's been on a lot of documentaries. Joe Conjal says, yes, please have another UFO show. Actually, yeah, those two guys asked to come back on. So
yeah,
we'll have to do that. And hopefully this time Jim can get a better connection than he had the last time. That was
well,
hard.
Believe you me, you will have at least one viewer that night. I can guarantee it.
Well, two, because Joe wants to watch too.
Okay, yeah, two.
That might be it, though. You never know.
Yeah. I
Unless
know.
there's some aliens watching.
So your latest book that you're writing on, back to what your books, which is what we're here for, is actually a sci-fi one about the ant people, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I always have that problem delineating between fantasy and sci-fi. I prefer to call it science fiction. Some people say it's more fantasy. I don't know. It's just out there.
Yeah, and it's important to I think, be able to promote your book as clearly as you can for genres so that people will know if it's something they'd be interested in, which also, for all of you that are going to be listening to this podcast, if you read a book, please write a review. If you like a book, write a review. It helps all of the authors a lot. And if you have constructive criticism, that's always welcome too.
That's what I was going to say. Everyone wants constructive criticism so we can improve. Right?
The thing is, it's like, you know, if you're shy, you don't really have to say a whole lot. All you got to do is say, I like this book, and rate it 4 or 5 stars and go on about your day then.
It's good too to point out why you like the book, because when I'm reading reviews, I want to see, okay, is this something I'm going to be interested in? And that's how I pick whether I'm going to read that book or not. I mean, we all have our favorite authors and we're going to read those books, all of them, but
right.
You know what I mean?
So Annie says, good episode.
Hey, Annie, thanks.
How you doing, Annie?
So when does the Return of the Ant People, what are you targeting the release on that one?
I am targeting that for November, early part of November. I want to have it out before Thanksgiving, because when you get into that Christmas, Thanksgiving mess, Christmas, nobody's going to be buying a book. And they may buy a book for somebody else, but it's going to be a book that's already out. I mean, you know, nobody's going to have time to look at and see what's new and all that kind of thing.
A lot of people, and I agree, Christmas time and the holidays is a terrible time to put out a book. You would think, you know, when you first think about it, you think that's probably a great time, because then people want to buy it for, you know, but they're not as excited about your new book as you are.
Right.
You know,
February it starts picking up.
Yeah. Now, with the Windmill Portal, it's like I finished that up like, I don't know, last November. It was right around Thanksgiving, but I said, no, I don't think so. I held it back till the first of the year.
Right. February is usually when it picks up again. George says he was married to an alien named Deborah for 6 months. Oh, wait, she was just a space case.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, George. You got to buy George books. Just keeps coming.
I missed everybody.
I know. I missed all of you guys. My goodness. So many authors in our audience tonight, too. Missed
Wow.
all of you guys and all of your comments.
Okay, so we know where to reach James,
Mhm.
and we've seen his book giveaway there. Hopefully everybody is entered.
Yep. I put up his Facebook,
Mhm.
james.rickard.5832. And then his Twitter is different. It's at liamand82987044. And his email is jamesrickardwrites@gmail.com. And that's where you can go to get one of his books, book of your choice.
And generally on Wednesday nights, you can find him in the audience here on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have any more questions for him, if anything comes up.
I know.
Which is awesome. So,
It is.
So I think we probably ought to break for our commercial.
Okay.
And get that taken care of here. When we come back, we have another comment here before that.
George.
Let's see what George has to say. Just finished the sequel to Siren Song, and it's named Siren Song 2.
Well, good.
Very
George,
good.
we need a copy of that.
Yeah.
We need to buy that.
Is it
I've been waiting to read it after I finished reading Siren Song, so
you can let us know when it's published,
Mhm.
ready to go.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, George.
And let's go here. All righty. And you guys will just bear with us here for a few minutes. We will hear from our sponsors.
Rob's forgotten how to produce the show.
Here we go.
Hey, look at us. We've got a new store.
Yeah, we do. It's pretty exciting.
What can you find there?
We have a number of designs available on t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, laptop and phone cases, pillows, and new designs are coming in all the time.
Sounds like a great place to shop for authors and readers.
Yeah, and it's easy to find. It's simple. Just visit indiebooksource.com, click on the store tab, and you're there.
The Bipolar DM Show, a show about Dungeons & Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness. Watch us live on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WLFE-DB.com, where we interview guest speakers, authors, and subject matter experts in the areas of mental health, living well, and role-playing games. We're proud supporters of Safe Space. For more information, be sure to visit WLFE-DB.com. Watch us live on Strim TV, Variety Unlimited channel. Also, visit our Facebook page at Bipolar DM and see us on twitch.tv/TheBipolarDM. Our webpage is www.thebipolardm.com. There you'll find more information.
At Indie Book Source, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network presents Variety Unlimited Television. Watch shows like Meet the Author Podcast, The Bipolar DM, Just Cindy, Card Pulls and Coffee, Unfiltered Talk with Bryce, and more. That's right, our shows are your shows on WLFE Digital Broadcast Network. And now, back to the show. Hi, Joe.
Hi, welcome aboard, Joe.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Joe.
We're good. Actually, I just wanted to bring up one comment. If you'll give me. Thanks. So Chanel, you said, hello, I missed the live you. LOL. We missed the live you too, Chanel. I was hoping
we were still alive.
Yeah.
I just want to go on record with that.
But it was we enjoyed very much both of our pre-recorded shows, but we do miss having you guys in the audience.
Yes.
And George says that he'll send us the galleys. His book won't launch until July.
Okay,
but I know he had to
waiting.
get that in the works before because of his movie deal. They wanted two in the hopper. So anyway, Joe, this is your time, so I won't take up any more of your time. You've had
Very precious.
You have quite a storied past. Would you like to tell a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing? And you are very multi-genre, which is a good thing.
True. Yeah. Well, I've been writing, much like Jim said, I've been private writing since the first grade. I was very fortunate growing up to have some really excellent teachers, some of whom, believe it or not, I'm still in touch with. They're all about 195 years old, but and one of them I know is listening right now, so I hope he caught that. Anyway, so I was very fortunate that writing has always played a big, important part of what I did. I was a police officer for 20 years after I got out of the Air Force, and as anybody who was a police officer will tell you, being a cop for 5 minutes will give you stories to tell for a lifetime. So, but I wrote when I was on the police department. I would write for magazines and newspapers and various things like that. But I wrote under a pen name because police departments are somewhat rigid structure, and sometimes they don't necessarily take to different politics, I guess is a good way to put it. So once I retired, I was free to let everybody know that, oh my God, he was a closet liberal.
In the police department, that would have been better in the closet.
I mean, I think they had a bit of an idea, but anyway. So I started taking it seriously once I retired, and as would have it, I worked for Southwest Airlines for a short period of time. And make a long story short, I mentioned to a few people in this training group I was in that I was writing a novel. And so when the class was all over, everybody was handing me their email addresses saying, well, I want the book when it comes out. So now I actually had to write the book because I was only telling them. And that's how the first book I wrote, called Collision Course, came out. And it was based on my experiences on the police department. It's a fiction, it's a novel, it's not a true story. But as luck would have it, it involved the shooting, that's the book there, a shooting by a white police officer of a black man who, there was the rest of the story, so to speak. And there was no right or wrong. It was all gray. So that got me started in writing, and then came Silent Justice, which was also based on some experiences. I spent a lot of time in court as a police officer. I seem to spend half my life in court because I worked for, while I was with the East Providence Police Department, I was assigned to the FBI and to the what's called the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. So we worked statewide and federal cases. So I got a lot of experience in courts, federal court in particular. And Silent Justice sort of brings into the people into the courtroom, which is I always tell people, if you want some really interesting entertainment, go to see a trial. Actually, if you go to arraignment day when they're arraigning everybody who violated the conditions of their parole, that can be pretty funny too, with some of the explanations. Like, I didn't realize I was robbing that grocery store when I had that right in my hand. But that's how Silent Justice came apart. And then what happened was, my wife said, she knows I have a vivid imagination because she's been living with me for 40 years. She said, why don't you write a kid's book or a young adult book? And that's where Saving the Last Dragon came into play. And Saving the Last Dragon has been something that I've always wanted to write something entirely different. When I left the police department, I said, I'm not going to be like a lot of cops who they leave the police department and they go work for security for some company, or they go, I wanted to do something entirely different. I went to work for a software company. So writing Saving the Last Dragon was to take me down an entirely different road. And writing fiction, when I was writing the police books, they were fiction, but, I was reliving some of the things that I had experienced. When you're writing a book like Saving the Last Dragon, which is about a wheelchair-bound high school student who finds himself involved in the world of magic and dragons, everything is imaginary. Everything is made up, and you can kind of let your imagination run wild. It was a lot of fun. I had always envisioned the book as a trilogy, and so that book was actually finished back in 2014. But what happened was my book started to gain some popularity here, and I was contacted by an attorney who I'd had some contact, some interaction with when I was on the police department. He asked me if I would be interested in, hello, Michael, asked me if I was, my father was also a police officer too. But anyway, when he asked me if I'd be interested in writing a project, and he didn't tell me what it was about, but I said, sure, I'll come down and talk to him. What happened, his wife had read 2 of my novels, and they were looking for someone to work on a project, and I went down there, and the book that came from it is this one here. It's called Choices. You get the camera angle right here.
There it is.
Yeah, you got it right.
Perfect.
And it's about a guy by the name of Jerry Tillinghast, who was a notorious enforcer for the patriarchal mob family here in Rhode Island. My father actually had arrested him, so we kept it all in the family. My father arrested him. I wrote his book. So I met Jerry. He'd been out of prison about 3 years. He spent 33 years in prison for a murder. But the interesting thing about his story, when I talked with him, I said that I would be interested in writing the book, but I'm not going to write it. I'm not going to put anything in the book that I can't back up and that I can't substantiate. And Jerry agreed. We really had no choice, because it's either that or I wasn't going to write it. But in writing the story, I found out some things. There's no matter how bad a person is, there's always more to their story. I mean, there are sociopaths in the world who are just plain evil, have no empathy for people, but they're very rare. Most people are just people who made bad choices, and that's why we came up with the title of the book, was Choices. Jerry lives, he spent 33 years in prison. He's got 5 kids, almost the entire life of all his children. He was in prison. But Jerry was also a Marine in Vietnam, and he got involved in an incident in Vietnam where he was charged with a rape of a Vietnamese woman. And what really decided the story for me to write the story about him was I was able to track down the original Marine JAG officer who represented him in Vietnam. This guy was a retired presiding justice of the California Supreme Court, and he remembered the case. Now that just fascinated me, because you've got a guy who's got a 50-year legal career, probably dealt with thousands of cases, and he remembered the details of a court-martial of a Marine in Vietnam. And he told me he had seen 3 miscarriages of justice in his career as an attorney, as a jurist. Clear miscarriages of justice. And this case was one of them. Jerry, you should never have been convicted. But he came back. He was convicted. He got a longer. He didn't actually commit the rape. He was accused of threatening the woman and untying her. But 2 of the Marines that actually committed the rape received 6-month jail sentences, and they were reduced in pay and went back into the Marine Corps.
Wow.
Jerry received a dishonorable discharge, spent a year in prison, and came home a convicted felon. 19 years old, convicted felon. It's a tough kid. What does the Marine Corps teach you to do? They teach you how to kill people and break things. So you don't have a lot of transferable skills from the Marine Corps most of the time. So he got involved with the wise guys. And but the case that I read about in his book, his brother was also convicted with him, and his brother was not in the car. His brother was not involved in that murder. And Jerry ultimately told me he went to jail 30 years. He never said who was involved in that case until his brother died. Brother died as a result of being in prison, was not guilty of the murder. The guy who actually did commit the murder was another wise guy. But Jerry wouldn't give him up until he died. Once that guy died, then Jerry gave the story up. But his brother was not guilty and was convicted. And that's troubling. That's not the way. I don't have a problem putting bad guys in jail. I joked with Jerry. I said that, he was hiding in prison when I was on the police department. He went to prison in 1978 when I went on the job, and he didn't get out till 2003 or 2004. So the whole time I was a cop, he wasn't out on the street. But I wouldn't have had a problem arresting him if he, committed a crime.
Right.
But the system is not supposed to be you go to prison for something you didn't do.
Right.
No
Well, that's very true. Let's take a short moment here to do your book giveaway. Give people a chance to get in there. The book giveaway is that the first 5 people to email joe.broadmeadow@jebwizardpublishing.com, it's a long one, will win an ebook of their choice.
Now, I know that a couple of your books have been optioned for a movie. Is Choices one of those books?
Choices is one of them.
Yeah.
Essentially, the series of 3 books they're about organized crime, and 2 of them have been optioned for movies. One of them has actually already been made into a movie. The guy who I wrote the book about actually produced his own movie. He did a pretty good job. He's now marketing that. But these other 2 books, Choices, and then this book here I wrote, since I had written a couple of books about wise guys.
It's just the way it was.
It's called It's Just the Way It Was.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the war on the New England mob. This gentleman right here.
Yep.
You have to think backwards here. It's a guy by the name of Brendan Doherty, who was a former superintendent of the state police here in Rhode Island. I worked very closely with Brendan. He was assigned to the organized crime intelligence unit for a long time, and Brendan and I collaborated on his book. So both of those books have been optioned for. They're actually optioning them for probably based on fiction type syndicated TV show, not so much a documentary as there's a million documentaries on organized crime. So
yeah,
they're going to do it a little different, but kind of the backgrounds of how, if what happened to Jerry in Vietnam hadn't happened. Jerry's a very bright guy, very articulate, very funny. And except for a couple of murders, he's a pretty good guy. So
yeah, what's a couple of murders?
I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter is an attorney. She's not naive at all. And she came to a book signing with me, and Jerry, of course, is there. And so she was helping with, selling books and stuff. But so she got to talk to Jerry, and Jerry, took a liking to her. And he's a very funny guy. You have to remind yourself that he had a dark, sinister past. But after my daughter says to me, Dad, I've had a lot of interesting conversations in my life. But when Jerry said, well, the first time I was in prison for murder, that's the first time I ever heard that kind of a conversation.
Right, exactly. And the second time
she said, how many times have you been in time for murder? And he was like, 6 times, but I was only convicted once.
Wow.
Sure.
Caleb says Joe walks the dark streets and is a brilliant storyteller. And Marjorie wants to know, did the movie stay true to your story as written, or did they make changes to it? Sometimes you hear horror stories about that.
Well, I'll tell you, here's my attitude about that sort of stuff. If I have $10 million and I want to make the movie, then I can make the movie any way I want. If somebody wants to pay me for my book and produce the movie, then they can make the movie any way they want. I see a lot of those stories where authors will say, "Oh, they took my book and they ruined it." Well, you wrote a book and you sold it. People bought it and either liked it or they didn't like it, whatever. Somebody else is investing a lot of money in a movie and they can make that movie any way they choose. So I don't get. If somebody is somebody is so dedicated to their work that they're willing to say, "No, thank you. I don't want your money to take my book and ruin it." That's good. But
yeah,
it's not the money that's really important. I'm more excited by the fact that I can point out to a TV screen someday and say, "Oh, look at that! It says,
I wrote that.
By Joe Broadmeadow, whatever." That's pretty exciting stuff. So
that is cool.
It is.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in what you had to say about Jerry. Is it your opinion as a retired Leo and, now getting to know him, that if that had not happened in Vietnam, his life might have taken a different turn?
I think absolutely. I do. I think had Jerry, if that had not happened to Jerry in Vietnam, and assuming he survived Vietnam, when Jerry was there in 1965, that was not a good time. Not that there was ever a good time to be in Vietnam.
No.
One of the least good times to be in Vietnam.
Right.
Assuming he had survived, my guess is he would have been a career Marine. He's ideally suited for it. He had the attitude. He's a tough guy. He just fit the profile, and that's what drew him to the attention of organized crime when he came back, because he was a tough guy. Raymond Patriarca had, of all the bad things you can say about Raymond Patriarca, who was the head of organized crime here for years, he had an eye for talent. He knew who he could pick, and Jerry was one of those guys. So they groomed him. So I think Jerry could have been. I mean, when you talk with him, again, you have to remind yourself that. I mean, he doesn't want to go back to prison. That life is long gone. He lives. That's why in the book he says, your choices, you make them, you own them, and that's what he lives by. I think he would have been an entirely different. And I think it points out the idea that early intervention on people was very important, and justice. What happened to Jerry in Vietnam was an injustice, and that set a certain tone. What happened to his brother? His brother was a bookie. His brother was probably involved in, stolen goods. He was not a good guy, but he didn't commit that murder. And the way the system is, you don't put people in prison for things they did not do.
Right.
That's not, but there was an old, there was an attorney by the name of Alan Dershowitz. I'm sure you've heard about it. He wrote a book a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's called For the Defense. Brilliant attorney. But one of the things he talks about, in the rules of the criminal justice system, is he has a list of all these rules. And, the rules are like the cops lie, the attorneys lie, the defendants lie. All the judges know this. They just pick the best liar. But one of the things he says is the rules do not apply when it involves organized crime. When it's organized crime, all the rules are off. All the rules are off. And that's not the way the system's supposed to work, because who gets to decide that? I've gotten a lot of compliments. There's a couple coming through here right now about some of the things I've written, but I've also gotten quite a lot of heat from some old school cops who are not really thrilled with some of the songs I've written about them. But the truth is the truth, and that's that's the way
to have the truth come out. The truth needs to be out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Joe says you've had a fascinating life, leaving you with a deep well of story ideas. Diane mentioned that you have a good number of books listed on Amazon. And Marjorie wanted to say that you had a good answer and a great attitude about the movie and having your book made. And
to kind of jump back quick I wanted to just mention one more thing about Saving the Last Dragon. I had always planned it as a trilogy, and now I'm finally getting to the point where it's already sort of outlined out. I tend to be by the seat of the pants writer, but I had to map this out because it's a little bit more complex than just a simple story. But I'm excited about that because that's where writing is fun. As you mentioned, I have a publishing company as well. I work with a lot of different independent authors. But I'm really selective about the books that we take on. We don't take on everybody who wants to just, publish a book. And I've been spending a lot of time building that business up. So I've been devoting a lot of time to editing and working with I have some freelance editors that I use and things like that. So I'm now at the point where I can kind of get back to focusing on, the fun stuff, which is really writing.
Writing.
And I have a grandson now, so I'm writing stories. Well, right now he's only 5 months old, so he's not really writing the story with me, but I am putting him down as the co-author on all the books that I'm
I wanted to put this back up again. Deb was Publishing books with character. That's the logo for his publishing.
Did we go through all his contacts?
Nope, we did not.
We need to do that then.
Diane says, I really read books, but listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've put your book, Silence Justice, on my wish list for a future read. Very nice.
That's great. Thank you, Diane. I really, that's one of, if I had to pick, if I only could have one book, it would be a hard choice. But Silent Justice would be in the running, because it's a great story, and it's, I get a kick out of when I watch police shows on TV, because, the cops, they shoot 5 people before they've had their first coffee. And that just
isn't that the truth?
If you're a police officer and you killed 5 people, there's something wrong with you.
But if you have most police officers, they've never shot anyone.
No. And if you do shoot someone, I am telling you that it will tear your heart apart. I don't care what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
And the statistics are that most police officers who are involved in fatal shootings leave the job within 3 to 5 years because of the psychological trauma. Because you're taking years off, regardless of the circumstances. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, Silent Justice there's a lot of there's some cop humor in there, but that's the way it is. Well, I'll tell you an example. Just if I have time, as you notice, I don't have trouble talking. When I worked at the software company, I got delayed in traffic one time going to my office, and I walked in. I was a little angry because I don't like to be late. And the secretary says, "What was the matter?" I said, "Oh, it was an accident." I said, "It wasn't even a good one." She says, "It was a bad accident?" I said, "No, it was 2 cars that dented, but they got the 2 lanes of travel stuff down. It's not even a dead body. It's not a good accident." She was looking at me horrified, like, "That's a good accident?" So,
that's good.
The leftover cop stuff.
Well, let me put up some of your information here so people can get in touch with you. His website is joebroadmeadowblog.com, and that's JOEBROADMEADOWBLOG.com. And his Facebook is at Jeb Wizard, JEBWIZARD. His Twitter is at JBroadmeadow. And as we've already mentioned, his email is joe.broadmeadow@jebwizardpublishing.com. So if you want to win one of his books, that's where you should go.
So everybody should go and follow Joe and James and support them both.
Yeah.
Both very talented people.
That'd be awesome. There was one more question. I'm really stuck on this, I guess, about Jerry and his brother. So did they come from what we would call a rough neighborhood?
He grew up in the south side of Providence, but back in the the 50s, it really wasn't as. I mean, it was a tough neighborhood, but it was
tough.
Racially mixed. Jerry had none of his family were involved in any organized crime, and he's Irish, English and Irish. He's got no Italian ancestry that you would normally associate with some connection to the hill. So he grew up in a tough neighborhood, and he was involved in some stupid kid things, but nothing to indicate. There was no indication when he was in high school that there was a kid that was going to someday be in the FBI's most wanted list.
Yeah.
And it was just a set of circumstances that that happened. So.
And Michael just had this to say: just remember Harriet Lane, good old days.
They were. And I grew up. And we grew up in Como. That was. Actually, if you go on my blog, Michael, you can search through. I often write nostalgic things about Harriet Lane. It was a great place to grow up. It was a great neighborhood. Dead end streets and football in the street, and everybody knew everybody, and nobody had their doors locked. And it was a good place.
Oh my God! Right.
Right. And that's why That's why I put Saving the Last Dragon takes place in Cumberland. There's a place there called Diamond Hill. It had no diamonds. We used to go up there and dig for years trying to find diamonds and find one diamond. But that's why I based it in Cumberland, just because it was such a great place to grow up.
When we all grew up, you could go outside and play in the streets. And in the summertime, I remember all the parents would have a different way of calling the kids home. Some would whistle, some would have bells, stuff like that. It'd be midnight in the summer. We'd be out playing till midnight, and then we'd be called in because it was summer. You didn't have school.
Yeah, we were surrounded by woods, so we would go out.
Yeah,
and
we were
8 in the
too.
morning
Too,
and not
yeah.
go back till 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
at night.
your
Where about
parents
the woods
wouldn't
were
worry
there?
about you.
But now,
You know?
now people get abducted in the woods.
I know.
So it's like,
Yeah.
We
Well, that's
used
what
to
doesn't
see-
happen. But people think it, but it doesn't happen. You know.
yeah.
We used to see fox in the woods and
Yeah,
all kinds of
sure.
stuff, and our parents didn't worry. You know, you go out and play.
Exactly.
That
You
was
do
a
it more
different,
often instead of sitting
different
inside.
life.
If you're not inside reading, you should be outside playing.
There you go.
I'm the
Reading
kind
or
of
writing.
person that I'll read a toothpaste tube if I don't have anything else to read, because I like to read.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's open the show up now between Joe and James. If you guys have any questions for each other or comments for each other and the audience,
Do you have any questions?
anybody in the
for anyone?
audience have any last minute questions here as we
Oh,
kind of wind down?
Joe, I tell you what, man, I think I could talk to you for another hour, but we'll try and
Yeah.
wrap this up. Anyway, what you said about being in a trial, it was awesome because I don't know if you say it was awesome, but when I lived in Pittsburgh, I had to do a murder trial that was gang related, and that was awfully interesting. It's like
Yeah.
everybody griped, right now I live in a small town in West Virginia. I was from a small town in West Virginia, and I was excited as heck, and everybody else griped about being there. So I don't know. But what I wanted to ask though is, you said they're trying to make a movie out of The Choice. Is that correct?
Choices, yes.
Okay. Well, I was wondering, it's like, are they going to let you help with the film, maybe like as a technical advisor or something else, or did they just bite and say, "See you, bye"?
No, well, well, they could have, but no. In this case, they've asked us to be. If you notice on a lot of these shows, you'll see producers, executive producers, assistant
Right,
executive
yeah.
producers. That's what all they are, and that's what where the contract has us as technical advisors to the movie. So, well, the
Okay.
TV show, whatever it works out. It's so yeah, we will be involved in some of that.
Great.
That's a whole other new world to me. I'm not sure, how. I mean, you could. The contract is, the option is for 2 years with an option to renew it for 2 years. So, this thing could be out there for 10 years before it gets made. But
Yep. Then once it gets in the can, it can sit there for a while too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, James, in the books that you write, do you focus primarily on things that interest you, or do you sometimes get ideas from other people and say, yeah, I think I'll run with that?
A little bit of both, really. It's something I'm interested in, but also I'm open to anything, changing anything around and making a story out of it. It's like when I write stories, they're usually about based in truth, except for my very first one, Grandpa wore a 6-gun. But the rest of them, there's a nugget of truth in there. Along those lines, this book, Once Upon a Time with Grandpa, there's a lot of truth in that book. I'd say, it's about Butch Cassidy, and it's probably, I don't know, 50%, 60% true.
I was like hearing how authors go about getting their ideas. For me, I have to write. I have to live to be about 150 to do all the books I want to do. But
That's exactly what I was thinking. But you're talking about all the things you've done. So
yeah,
I said, man, this guy's going to have a wealth of a storehouse in there.
yeah.
oh, sorry.
Oops.
That wasn't supposed to be on the air.
Oh,
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay, George. Sorry.
Sorry,
God bless.
Yes. Have a safe trip. So, James, do you have any advice for new authors?
yeah. My advice would be to pay attention to everything. And even when you're young and you're in school, pay attention to what your English teacher tells you.
Okay.
I don't want to sound like an old fart, but hey, if you're going to be a writer, you're going to need it sooner or later. But at the same time, remember, rules are made to be broken. Your teacher may not agree with that, and you may get in a lot of trouble in class and doing it. But if you come up with a good story, you can still break the rules a little bit.
There you go. And Joe, we'll throw that into your arena also for a short answer. If you have any short answers.
I always tell people that if you want to be a writer, then write. Sit down.
Yeah.
2 minutes a day, 2 hours a day. For me, I get up early. I'm usually up at 5:30 in the morning, and it usually gives me an hour, a couple hours of where I can write, and that works for me. But it's like playing a musical instrument. The only way to get good at it is to just keep writing.
Yeah, if you don't practice,
and you have to, and you have to read. That's the thing. I've always been I'm one of those people that I read. I always have 2 or 3 books going at a time because I just read all the time, and that's how you find good writing, and that's how you find really bad writing. But write. Sit down and write. How do I write a book? You start by in the beginning and go from there. That's how you do it.
Okay. I like to read. I've always liked to read since I was little. I like to read. And I mean, I like to read all kinds of genres, and I like to read classics, and I actually even like, Shakespeare. So
I like to read. Want to learn about life is in Shakespeare.
I love it.
Long before the advent of Kindle, I used to travel with almost a separate suitcase full of books. And one year I ran out in the middle of a vacation, which to me is just horrible. And we were at a Marriott hotel I think it was in Barbados, and I ended up reading the Book of Mormon, because that's Marriott is a Mormon.
Yes,
which was an interesting read. And
I've done the same thing. Remember when I did that?
Mm-hmm.
And also I read he had the Marriott's biography, which was in there, which was rather interesting. Because then I can tell everybody a tidbit that how Marriott hotels got started.
No,
A&W root beer.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
That really is amazing.
Yeah,
They drank it at the table?
Nope, he had an A&W root beer outside of Washington National Airport back in the 40s, I believe. And he was the first franchise A&W franchise location to get authorization to serve food. He would sell food to the pilots. And that built up Marriott's food service. And if you ever noticed, well, it used to be, I don't know if it is true anymore, but it used to be in almost all the international flights, the food service was provided by Marriott's.
That's so interesting.
Hotel and went from there.
That's cool.
I remember we used to go on cruises. Remember, before COVID, you could go on a cruise. Yeah. And Kindle was a blessing for me because you can't carry a whole ton of books on a cruise.
No, Kindle is the greatest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The only bad thing about it is now your thumb can buy another book. So that's a bad thing. But
instantly, by the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have some interesting things on my Kindle.
Yeah. But reading is an important thing. So we read to my daughter reads to my grandson every night. Every single night they read 2 or 3 books, and he's only drooling on them right now and clawing at them. We'll get the idea sooner or later.
But it's a good start. Joe
is.
Conjal says, great show tonight. Also enjoyed the pre-recorded shows. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, this has been fun.
It has been fun.
All right. Do you have any other questions or comments for
think we're
for
good.
these 2 gentlemen? Thank you, James and Joe, for joining us. I'm going to push you over to the side. You're welcome. And what else we got here? You got anything as far as?
I just want to remind people to like, share, follow, and always comment. We love the comments.
Right.
And after our show is Inside the Drag Closet.
To clear up possible confusion about the YouTube, anybody watching the live show, that's on the radio station's YouTube. Okay. Our channel is under Indie Book Source. So if you just search Indie Book Source, you'll come right to us. And that's where you want to go and follow us too. Besides the radio station, you can follow that one too. Next week, pardon me. Next week, episode 29 is author Verlin Darrow, mystery and paranormal urban fantasy author, and Jack Kriegas, multi-genre thriller, murder, adventure. Both are multi-genre authors. Again, and they're going to be good. So it'll be a fun time. and it will be a live show.
Yeah, so
be
tune
sure to
in,
be here.
comment.
So until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.